There are secrets that mothers keep for decades. Secrets they bury so deep they believe they'll never surface. But they always do. And when they finally come out, they destroy everything we thought we knew. I'm going to tell you the story of Iris and Lucy, the neighbor who cared for her sick mother for months, the woman who knew more than she let on, and the last person Iris ever expected would change her life forever. Iris returned to the Garden District of New Orleans after 20 years to care for her mother Hope, whose heart was failing. Looking for clean sheets, she found a carved wooden box hidden behind the armoire. Inside were yellowed letters tied with a faded red ribbon, and the first one was dated 1998, the year her father disappeared. That same evening, Lucy knocked on her door with a steaming pot of gumbo, and when Iris saw her standing there, with those honey-colored eyes that seemed to read too much, she knew this woman was keeping secrets. Secrets about her mother, secrets about her father, and perhaps secrets about herself. Because what Iris discovered in those letters wasn't just a lie. It was the truth about why her father really left 30 years ago, and the name of the person who forced him to go. A truth her mother buried, a truth Lucy knew, a truth that will change everything. This is not just a story about family secrets. It's a story about lies that last decades, about love that blooms in the most unexpected moments, and about truths that, when they finally surface, can either destroy us or set us free. Stay with me until the end to discover this story. The box had been waiting for her for 20 years, and when Iris finally opened it, she wished she had never come back. The smell of dampness and mothballs hit her before her fingers even touched the first yellowed envelope. Outside, September rain was falling over the rooftops of the Garden District, with that stubborn persistence only New Orleans knows, as if the sky itself was warning her that some truths were meant to stay buried. Iris was 34 years old, her dark hair pulled back in a messy braid, dark circles under her eyes telling stories of sleepless nights. She had returned to her childhood home just 3 weeks ago, when the doctor spoke the words that would change everything. Her mother, Hope, needed constant care. Her heart was failing, they said. But Iris was beginning to suspect that her mother's heart had started failing long before any doctor could diagnose it. "Mama, what is this?" she whispered to herself, pulling out a stack of letters tied with a faded red ribbon. Hope's bedroom smelled of medications and wilting gardenias. The ceiling fan spun lazily, barely moving the thick air of that Friday afternoon. In the bed, her mother slept under the effect of sedatives, unaware that her daughter had just found the carved wooden box hidden behind the armoire, the one Iris vaguely remembered from her childhood, but had always been forbidden to touch. The first letter was dated 1998, the year her father disappeared. "Hope, I can't keep living this lie." Iris's hands began to tremble. The handwriting was unmistakable, the same slanted script that signed the few birthday cards she had kept from her childhood. But the contents were liquid poison spilling over every certainty she had built over 3 decades. She read the entire letter, then the next one, and the next. When she finished, the grandfather clock in the hallway struck 7, and Iris was no longer the same woman who had entered that room looking for clean sheets. Her father hadn't abandoned them. Her father had been expelled. And the woman sleeping in that bed, the woman she had come to care for with devoted duty, was the architect of the biggest lie of her life. Subscribe now. YouTube prioritizes subscribers, and those who aren't subscribed miss future stories. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her stupor. "Iris, I brought the gumbo for Miss Hope." The voice was warm, carrying that soft southern drawl that Lucy had never lost despite living in New Orleans her whole life. Iris hastily stuffed the letters back into the box, pushing it under the bed with her foot. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and took a deep breath before opening the door. Lucy stood there, holding a steaming pot between her strong, capable hands. She was 32, her auburn hair falling in waves to her shoulders, and honey-colored eyes that seemed to read too much. She wore a blue apron over her cotton dress, and there was a spot of parsley on her left cheek that she hadn't noticed. "You okay?" Lucy asked, frowning. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I don't believe in ghosts," Iris replied, with a voice she didn't recognize as her own. "Well, you saw something. Your eyes are all red." "It's the humidity. Irritates me." Lucy didn't push. That was one of the things Iris had learned to appreciate about her in those 3 weeks. She knew when to press and when to step back. She had appeared the second day after Iris arrived, knocking on the door with a plate of homemade beignets and the explanation that she had been taking care of Miss Hope for the past few months when the illness started getting worse, and there was no one else. No one else. Because Iris had been too busy building her life in Chicago, too busy running from this house, from these memories, from the shadow of a father she believed had abandoned them without looking back. "Put it in the kitchen, please," Iris said, stepping aside. "I'm going to wake my mother so she can eat." Lucy nodded and walked toward the kitchen with the familiarity of someone who knows every corner of someone else's house. Her sandals made a soft sound against the hardwood floors. That sound Iris remembered from her childhood, when her mother used to walk the same way preparing breakfast before dawn. The house hadn't changed much in 20 years. The same dark mahogany furniture, the same yellowed lace curtains, the same photographs on the hallway wall. Except one. The space where her parents' wedding photo used to hang now showed a generic landscape of the Louisiana bayou. As if her father had been erased not only from their lives, but from the very history of this family. Iris returned to the bedroom and approached the bed where her mother rested. Hope was 63 years old, but the illness had aged her another decade. Her skin, once bronzed from Sunday walks in Jackson Square, now had the pallor of someone who spends too much time between 4 walls. Her hands, which once knitted beautiful quilts with enviable skill, now lay motionless on the embroidered bedspread. "Mama?" Iris whispered, gently touching her shoulder. "Mama, wake up. Lucy brought gumbo." Hope opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, she seemed not to recognize where she was. Then her gaze focused on Iris, and a weak smile formed on her cracked lips. "Baby girl," she murmured hoarsely. "What time is it?" 7. "You need to eat something." "I'm not hungry." "I didn't ask if you were hungry." Hope let out a short laugh that ended in a coughing fit. Iris helped her sit up, arranging the pillows behind her back with mechanical movements. Every gesture was a contradiction, a lifetime of love colliding with newly discovered rage. How could she care for someone who had lied to her for 30 years? How could she feed the woman who had destroyed her relationship with her father before she even had the chance to really know him? The questions burned in her throat, but Iris swallowed them along with the knot that threatened to choke her. "I'll get the gumbo," she said, and left the room before her mother could see the tears forming in her eyes again. In the kitchen, Lucy was ladling the gumbo into a blue ceramic bowl. The aroma of andouille sausage, okra, and cayenne filled the small space, mixing with the smell of wet earth coming through the half-open window. "I added a little extra filet powder," Lucy commented without turning around. "Miss Hope likes it that way." "How do you know so much about her?" The question came out sharper than Iris intended. Lucy turned, holding the bowl in her hands, and looked at her with an expression that mixed understanding and something else Iris couldn't identify. "Because she told me," Lucy replied calmly. "For the past 8 months, while you were in Chicago, I was the only one who came to see her." the only one who listened to her stories, who made her favorite meals, who stayed with her when she was afraid to sleep alone. The reproach wasn't in the words, but Iris felt it like a slap. I didn't know she was this bad, she defended herself, though the excuse sounded hollow even to her. Every time I called, she said she was fine, that she didn't need anything. Mothers always say that. Lucy placed the bowl on the tray next to a pewter spoon, especially the ones who have secrets to keep. Iris felt the air escape from her lungs. What did you say? Lucy looked her directly in the eyes. In the dim light of the kitchen, her face showed a seriousness that contrasted with the usual warmth of her expression. That mothers always say they're fine, nothing more. But there was something in the way she said it. Something that suggested Lucy knew more than she was letting on. Did she tell you something? Iris insisted, taking a step closer. About my father, about why he left. Silence stretched between them like an invisible border. Outside, a dog barked in the distance, and the streetcar passed by with its familiar clang, its sound fading into the oak-lined streets of the neighborhood. Your mother told me many things, Lucy finally admitted, lowering her gaze. But it's not my place to repeat them. If you want answers, you'll have to ask her. I can't ask her. Not now. Not like this. Then when? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Iris took the tray and walked toward her mother's room, feeling the weight of Lucy's gaze on her back. Every step was an effort, as if she were walking against an invisible current pushing her backward, toward the box hidden under the bed, toward the letters containing truth she hadn't finished processing. Hope was more awake when she entered. Her eyes followed Iris as she placed the tray on the nightstand and pulled the chair closer to sit beside her. Lucy left? Hope asked. She's in the kitchen. She's a good girl. She's helped me so much. Iris picked up the bowl and blew on the gumbo to cool it. Yes, she told me. Did she also tell you she reminds me of you when you were her age? The spoon stopped halfway between the bowl and Hope's lips. Me? Stubborn. Proud. Unable to ask for help even when she's drowning, Hope smiled weakly. That's why I like her. She reminds me of the daughter I lost. You didn't lose me, Mama. I'm right here. You're here now, but I lost you a long time ago. The day you left for Chicago with that rage in your eyes, I knew you weren't coming back. Not really. Iris felt her mother's words pierce places she thought were armored. I left because I needed to live my life, she replied with a controlled voice. I couldn't stay here, in this house, with all these memories. Memories of what? Of him, of Daddy, of everything he left behind when he walked out. Hope closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, there was something different in her expression. Something that looked like fear. Your father, she began, but a coughing fit interrupted her. Iris set down the bowl and helped her drink water from a glass on the nightstand. When the coughing subsided, Hope was exhausted, breathing with difficulty, her eyes wet from the effort. Rest, Mama. We'll talk later. No. Hope's voice was barely a whisper, but firm. There are things you need to know. Things I should have told you years ago, but I didn't have the courage. Iris's heart pounded. Part of her wanted to listen, needed to listen. But another part, the one that had found the letters just hours before, feared what might come from her mother's lips. Tomorrow, Iris said, adjusting the pillows. When you're stronger. Tomorrow might be too late. Don't say that. It's the truth, baby. My heart is tired. So very tired. Hope raised a trembling hand and placed it on Iris's cheek. The touch was cold, almost ethereal. as if she were already halfway between this world and another. "Forgive me," Hope whispered. "For everything I did. For everything I didn't tell you." Iris wanted to respond, but the words stuck in her throat. How do you forgive something you don't yet fully understand? How do you absolve someone of a crime whose magnitude you're only beginning to glimpse? "Sleep, Mama," was all she could say. Hope closed her eyes, and within minutes her breathing became regular, deep. The sleep of the sick. That sleep that resembles something else too closely. Iris remained seated by the bed for a long while, watching her mother's face in the dim lamplight. The wrinkles told stories she had never asked about. The spots on her hands spoke of years of work, of sacrifice, of an entire life dedicated to maintaining a lie. What had driven Hope to expel her husband from their lives? What secret was so terrible that she had preferred to raise her daughter alone, feeding her the poison of resentment toward a father who perhaps didn't deserve that hatred? The letters. The letters had the answers. Iris stood silently and walked to the side of the bed where she had hidden the box. She knelt, feeling the cold of the hardwood floor through her jeans, and pulled it out carefully so as not to make noise. The box was made of cedar, carved with floral designs she recognized from the antique shops in the French Quarter. Her mother had always had a weakness for Louisiana craftsmanship, probably because that's where she had met her father, at a jazz festival that ended in romance and promises that, according to the letters, had not been kept. She opened the lid with trembling fingers. Besides the letters, there were other objects she hadn't noticed before in her initial rush. A black and white photograph showed a young man with a mustache, smiling in front of a fountain she recognized as the one in Jackson Square. It was her father, Anthony, but younger than she remembered, with a light in his eyes she had never seen in the few photos she had of him. On the back of the photograph, a dedication. To Hope, my whole life. Anthony, 1986. There was also a silver ring with a turquoise stone, a bus ticket dated November 1998, and a sheet of paper folded many times, so worn it threatened to fall apart at the touch. Iris unfolded the paper with extreme care. It was a birth certificate, but not just any birth certificate. The name on it wasn't hers. Mary Frances Mitchell Morrison, born March 15, 1990. Father, Anthony Mitchell. Mother, unknown. Iris had to read the document 3 times before the words made sense. March 1990. She had been born in January of that same year. Her father had had another daughter, a daughter born just 2 months after her, a daughter whose mother was listed as unknown. The world tilted beneath her feet. "Iris?" Lucy's voice startled her. She was standing in the doorway, her silhouette outlined against the hallway light. "What are you doing on the floor?" she asked, approaching with concern. "Are you okay?" Iris couldn't respond. She just held up the birth certificate with a trembling hand, as if the paper were evidence of a crime she was only beginning to understand. Lucy knelt beside her and took the document. Her eyes scanned the lines, and when she reached the name, her face transformed. "Oh my God," she murmured. "Did you know?" Iris's voice was a broken whisper. "Did you know my father had another daughter?" Lucy shook her head, but there was something in her expression that didn't add up. A shadow of recognition she was trying to hide. "Your mother never told me about this. But you knew something? Something you haven't told me?" Lucy's silence was answer enough. Iris stood abruptly, stuffing the certificate and letters into the box with rough movements. "I need air," she said, passing Lucy without looking at her. "Take care of my mother." "Iris, wait." But Iris was already crossing the hallway through the living room, opening the front door into the rainy New Orleans night. The cold water hit her face like a brutal baptism. The cobblestone streets gleamed under the streetlights, reflecting a sky that wouldn't stop crying. Iris walked aimlessly, passing the colorful shotgun houses of the neighborhood, past the corner bar where old Mr. Thibodeau was still playing his accordion, past St. Louis Cathedral where she had been baptized 34 years ago. She stopped in front of the fountain in Jackson Square, the same fountain where her father had posed for that photograph in 1986. The water fell with a monotonous sound, mixing with the rain that wouldn't let up. Mary Frances Mitchell Morrison. A sister. She had a sister she never knew. Where was she now? Did she know about her existence? Was it because of her that her father had left, or had they forced him to choose between his two daughters? Questions multiplied like raindrops, each one giving rise to 10 more. And in the middle of all that chaos, an absurd thought pushed through. Why was the only person she wanted to trust right now Lucy, the neighbor she barely knew, the woman who clearly was hiding her own secrets? Iris raised her face to the sky, letting the rain wash away the tears she could no longer distinguish from the water. The box had been opened, and nothing would ever be the same. The following days passed in a fog of forced routines and deafening silences. Iris woke at dawn, prepared her mother's breakfast, administered the medications according to the strict schedule the doctor had prescribed, and spent the afternoons reading novels aloud that Hope barely listened to. Between these activities, she avoided looking at the box hidden under her own bed, where she had moved it after that rainy night. She also avoided Lucy. It wasn't easy, considering Lucy showed up every morning with fresh bread from the bakery on Magazine Street, and every night with some homemade dish she left in the kitchen before leaving without asking questions. But Iris had perfected the art of being busy just when there was a knock at the door, of disappearing into her mother's room when she heard those familiar footsteps in the hallway. Until the 5th day, when Lucy stopped respecting her boundaries. "This is ridiculous," she said, entering the kitchen where Iris was washing dishes that were already clean. "You've been avoiding me for days like I have the plague." Iris kept her eyes fixed on the soapy water. "I'm not avoiding you. I'm busy. You're washing the same plate for the 3rd time." A dose of reality. Iris let go of the plate and turned off the faucet, but didn't turn around. "What do you want, Lucy?" "I want us to talk. I want you to let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you knew things about my family that I didn't know? That my mother used you as a confidant while she kept me in the dark?" "It's not that simple." Iris finally turned. Lucy was standing by the kitchen table, her hands resting on the back of a chair as if she needed something to hold her up. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and there were shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "Then explain it to me," Iris challenged. "Make it simple." Lucy took a deep breath. "Your mother started talking about 6 months ago, when the doctors told her that her condition was serious. I think she felt the need to, I don't know, confess to someone. And I was the only one here." "What exactly did she tell you?" "She told me about your father, about why he left." Lucy paused, choosing her words carefully. "She said she threw him out, that she discovered something she couldn't forgive." "The other daughter," Iris said, feeling the rage climbing up her throat again. "Mary Frances." Lucy's face showed genuine surprise. "How do you know that name?" "I found the birth certificate, along with the letters where my father begged her to let him explain, to let him see his legitimate daughter even once a month." "Iris, 30 years, Lucy. 30 years believing my father was a coward who abandoned us without looking back. 30 years hating a man who probably loved me, but was forbidden from coming near me." The tears began to fall before Iris could stop them. She hated crying in front of others, hated showing that vulnerability she had always considered a weakness. But the weight of the past days was too much, and she no longer had the strength to hold it. Lucy approached slowly, like someone approaching a wounded animal that might attack at any moment. When she was close enough, she raised a hand and placed it on Iris's shoulder, with a gentleness that hurt. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "There are no words that can fix something like this." "I don't want you to fix it," Iris replied between sobs. "I want to understand. I want to know why my mother decided it was better to have a daughter without a father than an uncomfortable truth. Maybe she was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of you choosing her." Lucy's voice was barely a whisper. "Of you learning the truth and deciding that the villain wasn't your father, but her." Iris raised her gaze. Lucy's eyes were wet too, reflecting an empathy that went beyond simple compassion. "And wouldn't that be fair?" Iris asked. "Wouldn't she be the villain in this story?" "People aren't villains or heroes, Iris. They're human. They make mistakes, make stupid decisions, hurt the people they love because they're afraid of losing them. Your mother isn't a monster. She's a woman who felt betrayed and reacted in the worst possible way. You sound like you're defending her. I'm not defending her, but I'm not condemning her either, because that's not my place." Lucy removed her hand from Iris's shoulder. "That's your decision. Yours and no one else's." The silence that followed was different from the ones before. Less tense, more contemplative, as if both had arrived at a place where words were no longer necessary. Where what mattered was simply being present. Iris wiped her tears with the back of her hand and took a deep breath. "Thank you," she said finally. "For what?" "For not lying to me. For not trying to make me feel better with empty phrases." Lucy cracked a half smile. "Empty phrases were never my thing." For the first time in days, Iris felt something loosen in her chest. It wasn't forgiveness, much less peace, but it was a beginning, a small step towards somewhere she couldn't yet name. "Are you hungry?" Lucy asked, changing the tone. "I brought crawfish étouffée, fresh made." "You always bring food." "It's what I do when I don't know what else to do." Iris almost smiled. "Okay, let's eat." They sat at the kitchen table, sharing the étouffée in silence while the afternoon light came through the window, tinting everything in golden and orange tones. It was a simple, ordinary moment, but Iris treasured it as if it were something precious. Because in the midst of all the confusion, the pain, the unanswered questions, there was something comforting about Lucy's presence. Something she couldn't explain and didn't want to analyze too much. "Can I ask you something personal?" Lucy said suddenly. Iris looked up from the food she was eating. "Depends on how personal." "Why did you never get married?" The question caught her off guard. Of all the things she expected Lucy to ask, that wasn't on the list. "Who says I didn't get married?" "Your mother. She says you had boyfriends, but none of them lasted. That you always found an excuse to end relationships before they got serious." Iris set down her fork and leaned back in the chair. "My mother talks too much. She's a sick old woman. Talking is almost all she has left." The comment had an edge of reproach that Iris chose to ignore. "I never got married because I never found someone worth it," she finally answered. "Or maybe because I learned as a child that love is a promise no one keeps. Look at my parents. They swore to love each other forever and ended up destroying each other. Not all love is like that." "Oh no? And what do you know about it?" Lucy smiled with a sadness Iris hadn't noticed before. "I know there are loves that last a lifetime, even if they never come to fruition. Loves that mark you even if you never confess them. Loves that make you a better person even if they're never returned. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does." There was something in the way she said it, an intensity in her gaze that made Iris feel an unexpected warmth in her cheeks. "You speak as if you have experience," she commented, trying to sound casual. "I have experience in many things," Lucy replied, holding her gaze, "some of which I'm not ready to share." The moment stretched, charged with something neither of them dared to name. Iris broke the eye contact first, lowering her gaze to her plate with a confusion she didn't know how to handle. "I should go check on my mother," she said, standing abruptly. "It's almost time for her medicine." "Sure," Lucy replied, and if she was disappointed by the abrupt end of the conversation, she didn't show it. "I'll clean up." Iris walked toward her mother's room with her heart beating faster than normal. What was that? What was that tension that had settled between them? That electric current that seemed to surge every time their eyes met? No. She couldn't allow herself to think about that. Not now, with everything that was happening. She had enough problems without adding additional complications to the mix. Hope was awake when she entered, her eyes fixed on the ceiling with an absent expression Iris had learned to recognize as a sign that she was remembering something. "Mama, how are you feeling?" "I dreamed about your father," Hope replied without looking at her. "I dreamed he came back and asked me for forgiveness." Iris sat in the chair by the bed, feeling the weight of recent revelations fall on her shoulders again. "And did you forgive him?" she asked. Hope turned her head to look at her. Her eyes, once so vivid, now seemed clouded by something more than age or illness. "In the dream, yes. But when I woke up, I remembered why I can't do it in real life." "Why can't you, Mama?" "Because forgiving him would mean admitting that I was also at fault. And I'm not ready for that." It was the most honest thing her mother had said in a long time. Iris felt a mix of admiration and frustration at that confession. What if I need you to admit it? What if I need to understand what really happened so I can move forward? Hope closed her eyes. "There's a letter," she said slowly. "One that's not in the box. One I kept somewhere else because it was the only one I couldn't bear to see." "Where?" "In the back of the closet in your old room, behind the false panel your father built when you were 5, so you could keep your treasures." Iris remembered that panel. She had completely forgotten about it, buried under layers of memories she had preferred not to revisit. "What does that letter say?" "The truth," Hope replied, opening her eyes with visible effort. "The whole truth about why your father left, and why I decided it was better if he never came back. Read it. And then, if you can still look me in the eyes, we'll talk." Iris remained paralyzed for a moment, processing her mother's words. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm dying, baby, and I don't want to leave this world without you knowing who I really am, even if that means you hate me." "I don't hate you, Mama." "Not yet," Hope murmured, closing her eyes again. "Not yet." Iris administered the medications in silence, her movements mechanical while her mind worked at full speed. The letter. Another piece of the puzzle her mother had kept hidden for decades. When Hope fell asleep, Iris left the room and headed to what had been her childhood bedroom. Now it served as a storage room, full of dusty boxes and furniture covered with white sheets that looked like ghosts in the dimness. The closet was at the back, almost unrecognizable under years of neglect. Iris had to move several boxes to reach it, raising clouds of dust that made her cough. The false panel was still there, exactly where she remembered it. A rectangle of wood that differed from the rest only if you knew where to look. She removed it with trembling hands. Behind it, in the small, dark space that had once held her childhood treasures, was a yellowed envelope. Iris took it and opened it with the same care she would have used to defuse a bomb. The letter was written in a different handwriting than her father's. It was a woman's script, elegant but hurried, as if whoever was writing was in a hurry or afraid of being discovered. Hope. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I need you to read this to the end. Your husband and I didn't have an affair. What happened between us was one night. One night we both regretted before dawn. He was drunk. I was lonely and desperate. Neither of us was trying to hurt you, but that doesn't change the fact that we did. From that night, Mary Frances was born. Anthony wanted to tell you from the beginning. I was the one who begged him not to, because I knew it would destroy your marriage. I was wrong. The secret destroyed it anyway, just more slowly. When I finally told him he could confess, it was too late. You had already found the hospital papers. You had already drawn your own conclusions, and he, instead of explaining, chose to protect me. An unforgivable mistake from a man who wanted to do the right thing but didn't know how. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, and you have no obligation to give it to me. I'm writing because your daughter deserves to know the truth. She deserves to know that her father didn't abandon her out of cowardice, but because he chose to carry a guilt that wasn't his alone to protect a woman who didn't deserve it. Anthony loved you until the end, and he loved Iris more than anything in this world. As far as I know, he's still waiting in Savannah for the call that never came. Christine Morrison. Iris had to read the letter twice to make sure she understood what it said. Her father was alive, in Savannah, waiting for a call her mother never let her make. Her legs gave out, and she let herself fall to the floor, holding the letter against her chest as if it were the only real thing in a world that had just crumbled completely. Everything she had believed was a lie. Everything she had felt. All the resentment. All the bitterness toward an absent father. Based on an incomplete story. On a manipulated version of the facts. Her mother hadn't just thrown out her father. She had erased his existence, prevented any contact, raised her daughter in hatred toward a man whose only crime had been one night of weakness and the bad decision to want to protect the wrong woman. The sound of footsteps alerted her too late. "Iris?" Lucy's voice came from the hallway. "Your mother is asking for..." Lucy stopped in the doorway, seeing Iris on the floor, the crumpled letter in her hands, tears running down her face uncontrollably. "Oh my God," she murmured, running toward her. "What happened? What does that letter say?" Iris tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. She could only extend the letter toward Lucy with a desperate gesture. Lucy took it and read in silence. As she progressed, her expression changed from bewilderment to understanding, and finally to something that looked like indignation. "Your father is alive," she said finally, lowering the letter. "In Savannah, waiting for someone to find him. 30 years, Iris managed to say between sobs. 30 years believing he had abandoned us, and all this time he was waiting." Lucy knelt in front of her and took her face in her hands with a firmness that forced Iris to look at her. "Listen to me," she said with an intense voice. "What your mother did was wrong, terribly wrong. But now you know the truth. Now you can do something about it." "Do what? Go find him after 30 years? Pretend everything is fine?" "No. Go find him to meet him. To hear his version. To decide for yourself what kind of relationship you want to have with him, if you want to have any at all. And my mother? What do I do with her? That's also your decision, but you don't have to decide today. Or tomorrow. Right now, you just need to breathe." Iris took a deep breath, then another. Lucy's hands were still on her face, warm and firm, an anchor in the middle of the storm. "Why are you doing this?" Iris asked. "Why do you care so much about what happens to me?" Lucy didn't respond immediately. Her eyes searched Iris's with an intensity that took her breath away. "Because when you arrived at this house 3 weeks ago, I saw something in you that I recognized," she finally said. "I saw someone carrying a weight that doesn't belong to them, trying to be strong when all she wants is to fall apart. And I thought that maybe, if I could help you even a little, it would be worth it." "Worth what?" "Everything," Lucy whispered. "Everything I've been waiting for so long." The air between them became dense, charged with possibilities neither dared to explore. Iris felt the irrational impulse to close the distance, to take refuge in the arms of this woman who had somehow become the only stable thing in her chaotic world. But fear stopped her. Fear and confusion, and the certainty that she was in no condition to make any decision that could change her life even more. "I need time," she said, pulling away gently. Lucy nodded, lowering her hands but not moving away entirely. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." It was a promise. Simple, direct, without adornment. And for some reason Iris couldn't explain, that promise felt more real than any other she had ever been given. If any part of this story resembles your life, the hype button helps make sure it doesn't go unheard. They stayed there, on the dusty floor of that room full of memories, while outside the sun finished setting over the Garden District, and the bells of St. Louis Cathedral announced the end of another day. Another day when everything had changed. Another day that marked the before and after in Iris's life. And somewhere in Savannah, a man who had been waiting for 30 years didn't know that. Finally, someone was about to come find him. That night, Iris didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, Christine Morrison's letter folded in her lap, staring out the window as the Garden District sank into that particular silence that exists only between 3 and 5 in the morning. A stray cat crossed the neighbor's yard. The wind moved the branches of the magnolia tree her father had planted when she was born, the tree her mother had never had the heart to cut down despite everything. Savannah. Her father was in Savannah. The word echoed in her head like a sound that wouldn't stop. Savannah, with its moss-draped oaks and cobblestone squares. Savannah, 6 hours away by car, 30 years away in accumulated lies. What would he do when he saw her arrive? Would he recognize her? Would he have aged as much as she imagined? Or would he still have that wide smile she vaguely remembered from her childhood, before everything fell apart? When dawn began to paint the sky in shades of pink, Iris made a decision. She got up, showered with cold water to clear her head, and went down to the kitchen to make coffee. The aroma of chicory coffee filled the space as she waited, and when she heard the first sounds of her mother waking in the next room, she knew the moment had come. She entered Hope's room with a steaming cup in each hand. "Good morning, Mama." Hope opened her eyes slowly, blinking at the morning light coming through the window. "What time is it?" "Early, but we need to talk." Something in Iris's tone made Hope sit up more quickly than her condition usually allowed. She accepted the coffee cup with trembling hands and waited. Iris sat in the chair beside the bed, the same chair where she had spent so many hours in recent weeks. But this time was different. This time she wasn't there as a caregiver. She was there as a daughter, as the woman who had been deceived for 3 decades. "I found the letter," she said without preamble. Christine Morrison's letter. Hope's face transformed. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her paler than she already was. "Iris." "No," she interrupted firmly. "This time you're going to listen to me. I've spent weeks taking care of you, feeding you, giving you your medicines. And all that time you knew there was a letter hidden that explained the truth. All that time you could have told me, but you chose to keep lying. I just wanted, what? To protect me? From what, Mama? From knowing that my father loved me? From knowing that he didn't abandon us out of cowardice, but because you threw him out and forbade him from ever seeing me again? Tears began to fall down Hope's wrinkled cheeks, but Iris wasn't moved. She had spent too long feeling compassion for the wrong woman. He made a mistake, Hope said with a broken voice. One night, just one night with that woman. And from that night a child was born. How did you expect me to forgive that? I'm not asking if you should have forgiven him. I'm asking why you lied to me. Because I was afraid. Of what? Hope closed her eyes, and when she opened them, there was something different in her gaze. Something that looked like resignation mixed with relief, as if she could finally release a weight she had carried too long. Of you leaving me, she confessed. Of you knowing the truth and choosing your father. Of being left alone, like I always knew I would end up. So you preferred that I hate him. You preferred to poison me against him to make sure I would stay with you. When you say it like that, it sounds monstrous. Because it was monstrous, Mama. The silence that followed was thick, almost tangible. Outside, the birds were beginning their morning song, and a street musician passed by playing his trumpet, that familiar melody Iris had heard her whole life. Are you going to look for him? Hope finally asked. Yes. When? Tomorrow, or the day after, when I find someone who can stay with you while I'm gone. Hope nodded slowly, as if she had already anticipated that answer. Lucy can stay with me. The name cut through Iris in a way she didn't expect. I'm not going to ask her to do that. You don't have to. She'll offer. It's what she does. What do you mean by that? Hope sketched a weak smile, the first genuine one Iris had seen in days. I mean, that girl has been looking at you for weeks like you're the first rain after a drought. And you look at her the same way, even though you pretend not to notice. Iris felt the heat rise to her cheeks. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. You've always been bad at lying, baby. That's the only thing you didn't inherit from me. The comment had an edge of self-criticism Iris hadn't heard from her mother before. It was strange, even disconcerting, to see Hope admit her flaws so openly. Why are you telling me this? Iris asked. Because I'm dying, Hope replied with a calm that chilled the blood. And before I go, I want you to know that even though I did many things wrong, I never wanted you to be unhappy. If Lucy makes you happy, don't let fear stop you. Fear destroyed my marriage. Don't let it destroy your chance to love. Iris didn't know what to say. It was too much information, too many conflicting emotions to process in one morning. I'm going to make you breakfast, she finally said, standing up. You need to eat. Iris. She stopped at the threshold. Yes? Forgive me. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. Please. Iris didn't turn around. She couldn't. If she did, she would fall apart. I'll try, Mama. That's all I can promise. She left the room with a heavy heart and a racing mind. The conversation had been necessary, but that didn't make it any less painful. In the kitchen, she found Lucy already sitting at the table with a bag of fresh beignets and 2 steaming cups of coffee. I heard voices, Lucy said by way of explanation. I thought you'd need this. Iris let herself drop into the chair across from her. How much did you hear? Enough to know you're going to Savannah. Yes. Lucy pushed one of the cups toward her. Do you want me to come with you? The question took Iris by surprise. Come with me? What about my mother? We can ask Miss Thibodeau from the house on the corner to stay with her for a couple of days. She's done it before, when your mother had doctor's appointments and I couldn't miss work. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. Lucy looked her directly in the eyes. And you shouldn't do this alone. There was something in the way she said it, a quiet certainty that disarmed any objection. Iris felt the defenses she had built over years beginning to crack. "Why do you want to help me so much?" she asked, repeating the question she had asked before, but still didn't have a satisfying answer for. Lucy took a sip of her coffee before responding. "When I was 16, my father died in a work accident. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to tell him all the things I needed to say." She paused, her eyes shining with the memory. "You have the opportunity I never had. Your father is alive, waiting for you. And if I can do something so you don't waste that opportunity, I will. I didn't know that about your father. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but some wounds never fully heal." Lucy sketched a sad smile. "That's why I understand what you're feeling. That's why I want to be there when you face it." Iris extended her hand across the table, almost without thinking, and placed it on Lucy's. The contact sent an electric charge through her arm, but she didn't pull away. "Thank you," she said simply. Lucy turned her hand to intertwine her fingers with Iris's. "You don't have to thank me. You just have to let me be there." They stayed like that for a moment, in silence, while the morning sun came through the window and bathed the kitchen in golden light. It was a small moment, intimate, but charged with meaning. For the first time in a long time, Iris didn't feel alone. They left for Savannah 2 days later, in Iris's old Honda that pulled out of the driveway at 6 in the morning. Iris had spent those 2 days preparing everything, leaving detailed instructions for Miss Thibodeau about her mother's medications, packing a small bag with the essentials, and trying to imagine what the meeting with her father would be like without going crazy in the process. Lucy had been her anchor throughout that time. She appeared every morning with hot food, stayed late helping with household chores, and listened without judging when Iris needed to vent about everything she was feeling. Now, sitting side by side in the car, watching as New Orleans faded behind them as they crossed the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, Iris felt that something had changed between them. It wasn't just gratitude. It wasn't just friendship. It was something deeper, more dangerous, more exciting. "What are you thinking about?" Lucy asked, noticing her absent expression. "About not knowing what I'm going to say to him when I see him." "You don't have to have everything planned. Sometimes the right words come when you need them. And if they don't come, what if I just stand there like an idiot not knowing what to do?" Lucy smiled. "Then I'll be there to nudge you and remind you to breathe." Iris let out a short laugh, the first genuine one she'd had in weeks. "You're ridiculous. But I made you laugh. That counts for something." The car moved down the highway, leaving behind small towns and pine forests that stretched to the horizon. The landscape changed gradually, becoming greener, more humid, as they headed toward the coast. Iris leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. "Lucy." "My mother said something this morning. About you. About us." She felt Lucy tense beside her. "What did she say?" "That you look at me like I'm the first rain after a drought." The silence that followed was long, charged with anticipation. "Your mother is very observant," Lucy finally said, her voice cautious. "Is it true?" Iris opened her eyes and turned her head to look at her. Lucy was still, her gaze fixed on the road, but there was a blush on her cheeks that gave her away. "Iris, she began, but stopped. "This isn't the time for this conversation." "When is the time then?" "When you're not in the middle of a family crisis. When you've found your father and processed everything that means. When you can make a decision without it being clouded by everything else." It was a reasonable, mature, considerate answer. And it irritated Iris deeply. "What if I don't want to wait?" she asked, surprising even herself with the boldness of her words. Lucy finally looked at her, Her honey-colored eyes shone with something that looked like hope, mixed with fear. "What exactly are you saying?" "I don't know," Iris admitted. "I just know that when I'm with you, things make more sense. That your presence calms me in a way I can't explain. That when you touch me, even casually, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Or maybe ever." Lucy exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath. "I've been feeling the same thing for months," she confessed in a low voice. "Since the first time I saw you, when you showed up at your mother's door with that old suitcase and that lost expression. I thought, this woman needs someone to take care of her. And then I thought, I want to be the one who takes care of her." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it wasn't my place. Because you barely knew me. Because you had too much on your plate to add another complication. And now?" Lucy took Iris's hand in hers. "Now I still think it's not the perfect time. But I also think that the perfect time maybe doesn't exist. And that if I keep waiting, I'm going to lose the chance to tell you how I feel." "Then tell me." "I like you, Iris. I like you in a way that scares me and excites me at the same time. And I don't know what that means or where it takes us, but I want to find out. With you. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does." The words hung between them, fragile and powerful at once. Iris didn't respond with words. Instead, she leaned over and kissed Lucy softly on the lips. It was a brief kiss, almost tentative, but charged with promises. When they separated, both had wet eyes and smiles they couldn't contain. "I guess this complicates things," Lucy murmured. "It complicates them," Iris admitted, "but in the best possible way." The car continued on its way to Savannah, carrying them toward a meeting that would change everything. But for that moment, in that small space shared between worn seats and dusty windows, the outside world ceased to exist. It was just them, and that was enough. Savannah welcomed them with its characteristic humid heat and the smell of the river that permeated the air. They arrived at the edge of the historic district shortly after noon, with the sun at its highest point and their clothes sticking to their bodies from the sweat accumulated during the trip. Iris got out of the car feeling her legs numb and her stomach churning, though she didn't know if it was from the drive or from the nerves about what she was about to do. Lucy took her hand as they walked toward the address. "Do you have the address?" Iris nodded, pulling from her pocket the paper where she had copied the information she found in one of the most recent letters. A boarding house near Forsyth Park, where her father had apparently been living for years. "Whitaker Street, number 215, the Magnolia Inn." "The Magnolia Inn," Lucy repeated with a half smile. "How southern." "Yeah, very southern." They walked through narrow streets full of Victorian mansions painted in pastel colors, blues, yellows, pinks, greens. The famous moss-draped oaks created a natural canopy above them, and the squares with their fountains appeared at regular intervals. Iris remembered coming to Savannah once, as a child, with her mother. They had walked through the squares, eaten pralines from a candy shop, listened to a jazz band playing in one of the parks. It was one of the few happy memories she had of her childhood, and now it seemed tinged with bitterness. Had her father been here all that time? Had he walked these same streets, breathed the same river air, while she hated him thousands of miles away? They stopped in front of a 2-story Victorian house with a wraparound porch and a weathered sign that read, "The Magnolia Inn. Rooms by the day, week, or month." "Do you want me to come in with you?" Lucy asked. Iris shook her head. "I need to do this alone, at least at first." "Okay, I'll be out here, waiting." "What if it takes a long time?" "Then I'll keep waiting." Lucy squeezed her hand. "As long as it takes." Iris walked up the steps of the porch with trembling legs. She crossed the threshold into the cool shade of the house, her eyes adjusting to the dim interior. The inside was modest, but clean. A reception desk occupied the back wall, and behind it sat an elderly woman reading a paperback novel with reading glasses perched on her nose. "Good afternoon," Iris greeted. "I'm looking for a guest. Anthony Mitchell." The woman lowered the book and looked at her with curiosity. "Mr. Anthony? Are you family?" "I'm his daughter." The words came out more easily than she expected, but they left a strange aftertaste in her mouth. It was the first time in 30 years that she had spoken them without resentment. The receptionist took off her glasses and studied her more closely. "You have his eyes," she finally said. Mr. Anthony always said his daughter had the prettiest eyes in all of Louisiana. Now I see he wasn't exaggerating. Iris felt a lump forming in her throat. "Is he here? Can I see him?" "He's in the garden out back. This time of day he always sits there to read. It's been his routine for years." The woman pointed to a side door. "Through there, third bench on the left." Iris thanked her with a gesture and walked toward the door, feeling each step as if she were walking on glass. The garden was small, but green, with a fountain in the center that no longer worked, and several wrought iron benches distributed under the shade of a massive magnolia tree. On the third bench to the left, just as the receptionist had said, a man was reading a book with the concentration of someone who has found in reading a refuge from the world. He had completely white hair, a slightly hunched back, and wore glasses similar to the receptionist's. He was dressed in a crisp seersucker suit and khaki pants, and his hands, though wrinkled with age, held the book with a delicacy Iris recognized immediately. Her father. That man was her father. She took a step forward, and the crunch of gravel under her feet made him look up. For a moment, neither of them moved. Time seemed to suspend, as if the entire universe were holding its breath. Then he recognized her. The book fell to the ground. His glasses slipped down his nose. And his eyes, those eyes Iris saw every day in the mirror, filled with tears. "Iris," he whispered with a broken voice. "My baby girl." "Daddy." The word was all she could say before her legs gave out. Anthony got up with surprising agility for his age and ran toward her, catching her in his arms just as she was about to fall. The hug was awkward, desperate, full of 30 years of absence and unanswered questions. Iris sobbed against her father's chest, feeling the beat of his heart, breathing in his scent of lavender soap and pipe tobacco that somehow she remembered even though it shouldn't be possible. "You came," he repeated over and over. "You finally came." "Forgive me," she cried. "Forgive me for not coming sooner, for believing the lies, for hating you all these years." "There's nothing to forgive, baby. Nothing. All that matters is that you're here." They stayed embraced for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. When they finally separated, both had faces soaked with tears and smiles they couldn't contain. Anthony guided her to the bench, and they sat side by side, their hands intertwined as if they feared the other would disappear if they let go. "How did you find me?" he asked. "The letter. Christine Morrison's letter. Mama kept it all these years, hidden in a place where she knew I would eventually find it." "Hope was always complicated," Anthony said with a sigh that contained no rancor, only resignation. "I loved her with all my heart, but I never quite understood her." "Do you still love her?" The question emerged before Iris could stop it. Anthony looked at her with infinite tenderness. "A part of me will always love her. She was the love of my youth, the mother of my daughter. But I stopped being in love with her a long time ago. Love doesn't survive 30 years of silence." "She's sick," Iris said. "Her heart. The doctors say she doesn't have much time left." I know. You know? How? Because I've been in contact with Lucy for the past 6 months. The revelation hit Iris like a bucket of cold water. With Lucy? My Lucy. Anthony smiled with an expression that mixed apology and mischief. The neighbor who's been taking care of your mother. Yes, that Lucy. She wrote to me 6 months ago, introducing herself and asking if I was the father of Iris Mitchell. She said she had found an old letter among Hope's things and wanted to verify the information before telling you anything. Iris didn't know whether to feel betrayed or grateful. Why didn't she tell me anything? Because I asked her not to. I wanted you to find me on your own terms, when you were ready. I didn't want to force anything. But she pretended not to know. She didn't pretend. She just waited. There's a difference. Iris processed the information slowly. Lucy had been guiding her all this time, preparing her without pressuring her, waiting for the right moment for the truth to come to light. It wasn't betrayal. It was protection. She's a good woman, Anthony continued. She's kept me informed about your mother, about you. She told me when you arrived in New Orleans how you were handling everything. And she told me something else. What? That you were the strongest and most stubborn woman she had ever met. And that she was in love with you even though you didn't know it yet. Iris felt the blush rise to her cheeks. Daddy, you don't have to explain anything to me, baby. Love is love. And after 30 years of silence, all I want is to see you happy. If Lucy makes you happy, then I already love her like a daughter. Tears fell again, but this time they were different. They were tears of relief, of liberation, of an acceptance Iris didn't know how much she needed until that moment. Tell me about yourself, she asked, changing the subject before she fell apart completely. What have you done all these years? How have you lived? Anthony leaned back on the bench with a sigh. When your mother threw me out, I had nothing. I came to Savannah because I had a cousin here who offered me work in his furniture restoration shop. I started from scratch, fixing antiques, refinishing tables, whatever came my way. Over the years, the business grew. I was never rich, but I had enough to live with dignity. And Mary Frances, your other daughter? Anthony's face darkened. Christine died when the girl was 10. A car accident. Mary Frances went to live with her maternal grandparents in Atlanta. I saw her a few times during her childhood, but when she grew up, she decided she didn't want any contact with me. She said I reminded her too much of her mother. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry, too. For her, for you, for all the lost years. Anthony squeezed Iris's hand. But now you're here. And that's more than I dared to dream for a long time. They spent the next few hours talking, filling the gaps of 30 years of absence with stories, memories, and comfortable silences that didn't need words. Anthony showed her photos of his small apartment, of the furniture he had restored, of the friends he had made in Savannah. Iris told him about her life in Chicago, her work as an accountant, the failed relationships that had never gone anywhere serious. I always knew something was missing, she confessed. I always felt a void I didn't know how to fill. Now I understand that void was you. Anthony hugged her again, more gently this time, as if he wanted to engrave that moment in his memory forever. It's never too late to start over, baby. It's never too late to build what should have existed from the beginning. When the sun began to set, painting the Savannah sky in shades of orange and red, Iris remembered that Lucy was still waiting outside. There's someone I want you to meet, she said, standing up. Well, meet in person. Anthony smiled, knowing exactly who she meant. Go get her. It's about time we were formally introduced. Iris walked toward the inn's entrance with lighter steps than when she had arrived. The weight she had carried for so long felt different now. Not exactly lighter, but more manageable. As if she finally knew how to hold it. Lucy was sitting on the porch, eating an ice cream cone while watching children play in the street. When she saw Iris come out, she stood immediately, searching her face for signs of how the meeting had gone. "Are you okay?" Iris kissed her in response. It was a longer kiss than the one in the car, more confident, more decided. A kiss that said everything words couldn't express. A supportive comment always makes a difference. If this story is reaching you, leave it below. When they separated, Lucy's eyes were wide open. "I guess it went well." "My father wants to meet you," Iris said. Formally this time, without letters in between. Lucy had the decency to look embarrassed. "So you know that?" "I know everything. And I'm not angry. I'm grateful." "Sure?" "Sure. Now come on. There's a 70-year-old man in there who's been waiting 30 years to meet his daughter-in-law." Lucy let out a laugh that sounded like relief and happiness mixed together. "Daughter-in-law? Don't you think you're moving a little fast?" "After 30 years of waiting, I think we all deserve to move a little faster." They walked together toward the inn, their hands intertwined, while the sun finished setting over Savannah and the gas lamps along the streets began to flicker on one by one. Inside, Anthony was waiting for them with a bottle of bourbon and 3 small glasses. "To reunions," he said, raising his glass when they sat beside him. "And to the second chances life gives us when we least expect them." They all toasted, and the bourbon burned Iris's throat in the most comforting way possible. That night, they had dinner together at a small restaurant near River Street, eating shrimp and grits and listening to a blues band playing on the corner. Anthony told stories of his youth, of how he had met Hope at that jazz festival in New Orleans, of the early years of marriage when everything seemed possible. Lucy listened attentively, asking questions, laughing at the right moments, taking Iris's hand under the table when the memories became too heavy. And for the first time in a long time, Iris allowed herself to imagine a different future. A future where her father existed, where Lucy was by her side, where the wounds of the past could heal even if they never completely disappeared. It wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. But for that night, under the stars of Savannah with the sound of the river in the background, that was more than enough. They returned to New Orleans 3 days later, with the Savannah sun still warming their skin and hearts lighter than they had been in years. Anthony accompanied them to the car, carrying a bag of Georgia peaches and a box of pralines he insisted on giving them for the road. At the moment of goodbye, he hugged Iris tightly, as if wanting to make up in that gesture for all the hugs he couldn't give her for 30 years. "Come back soon, baby," he whispered against her hair. "This time I'm not going to wait so long." "You won't have to, Daddy. I promise." Then he hugged Lucy with the same warmth and whispered something in her ear that made her blush and nod solemnly. "What did he say to you?" Iris asked when they were already settled in the car. "That I'd better take care of you. And that if I made you cry, he would personally come to New Orleans to find me." Iris burst out laughing. "My father threatening my girlfriend. Who would have thought?" "Girlfriend?" Lucy raised an eyebrow. "Is that what I am now? Would you prefer another term?" "No, girlfriend is fine, more than fine." They kissed softly as the car pulled away, leaving behind the city and its moss-draped oaks, carrying them back to the reality that awaited them in New Orleans. The return trip was different from the one going. Where before there had been tension and nerves, now there was a shared calm, a comfortable silence that didn't need to be filled with words. Lucy dozed with her head resting on a pillow against the window, and Iris spent the hours watching the road, thinking about everything that had changed in such a short time. She had found her father. She had discovered the truth about her past. She had started a relationship with a woman who, somehow, had become the center of her world without her realizing it. But there was still one unfinished matter, the hardest one of all: her mother. They arrived in the Garden District at dusk, when the oak-lined streets were tinged with gold, and the vendors in Jackson Square were beginning to pack up their stalls. Miss Thibodeau met them at the door with a worried expression. "Thank goodness you're back," she said, wringing her hands. "Miss Hope had an episode this morning. The doctor came and said she's stable, but I don't know. She looks very weak." Iris felt her stomach sink. What kind of episode? Her heart. She got very agitated, couldn't breathe well. They gave her oxygen and some new medications. She's sleeping now, but I understand. Thank you for taking care of her, Miss Thibodeau. It's nothing, honey. It's what neighbors do. Iris entered the house with Lucy following close behind. The familiar smell of gardenias and medications enveloped her, bringing with it a wave of contradictory emotions. Hope's room was in shadows, with only a bedside lamp illuminating the space with dim light. Her mother lay in bed, smaller and more fragile than Iris remembered, connected to an oxygen tank that emitted a soft, constant hum. "Mama," she whispered, approaching the bed. Hope opened her eyes slowly. It took her a moment to focus, but when she recognized her daughter, a weak smile formed on her cracked lips. "You came back," she murmured hoarsely. "I came back." "Did you find him? Your father?" Iris nodded, feeling tears begin to form in her eyes. "I found him. He's fine. He lives in Savannah." "Savannah," Hope repeated as if savoring the word. "He always liked the coast." "Yes, he has a life there. Friends, a routine. He's at peace." Hope closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, there was something different in her gaze, something that looked like acceptance. "Did he tell you everything?" "He told me his version, and I read Christine's letter." "Then you know I'm not the victim I always pretended to be." "I know you made mistakes, serious mistakes. But I also know you did it because you were afraid, and fear makes us do terrible things." Hope raised a trembling hand, seeking Iris's. When their fingers intertwined, both felt the weight of 30 years of secrets and silences condensing in that simple contact. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," Hope said. "Probably not," Iris admitted. "But I'm going to give it to you anyway." "Why?" "Because I've spent too much time carrying resentment, and I'm tired. I want to let go of all that and build something new, with Daddy, with you, with Lucy." At the sound of the name, Hope turned her head toward where Lucy stood in the doorway, watching the scene with wet eyes. "Come here, girl," she ordered with a shadow of her old temperament. Lucy approached cautiously, like someone approaching an unpredictable animal. "Yes, Miss Hope." "My daughter says she's going to build something with you. Is that true?" Lucy looked at Iris, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "I hope so, ma'am." "Then you'd better make her happy, because even though I'm dying, I still have enough strength to curse you if you break her heart." "Mama," Iris protested. But Lucy laughed, a genuine laugh that broke the tension of the moment. "Don't worry, Miss Hope. I have no intention of breaking anything, except maybe her habit of suffering in silence." Hope studied Lucy for a long moment, as if evaluating whether she was worthy of trust. Finally, something in her expression softened. "I like you," she declared. "I always liked you. Ever since you arrived in this neighborhood with your beignets and your habit of helping everyone." "Thank you, ma'am," Don't thank me yet. Wait until you know me better. I'm difficult." "I noticed," Lucy replied with a smile. "But so is your daughter. I suppose it runs in the family." Hope let out a laugh that ended in a coughing fit. Iris brought her a glass of water and waited for her to recover, feeling a mix of worry and something that resembled hope. Maybe it was possible. Maybe they could rebuild what had been broken. Not as it was before, because that was impossible, but as something new. Something different. The following days established a new routine. Iris got up early to prepare her mother's breakfast, administer medications, and make sure she was comfortable. Lucy arrived mid-morning with groceries from the market and stayed until afternoon, helping with housework and keeping Hope company when Iris needed to rest. At night, the three of them had dinner together in Hope's room, sharing stories and memories that before would have been too painful to mention. Hope talked about her youth in Mississippi, about how she had met Anthony at that jazz festival that changed her life, about the early years of marriage when everything seemed perfect. "We were so young," she said with nostalgia, "so stupidly young. We believed love could conquer everything, that nothing would ever separate us." "And what happened?" Iris asked, though she already knew the answer. "Life happened. Jealousy, insecurity, my inability to forgive a mistake that, looking back now, wasn't unforgivable. It was just human." It was strange to hear her mother speak like this, with that brutal honesty that had been impossible for her before. The illness, paradoxically, had freed her from the need to keep up appearances. One night, while Lucy washed dishes in the kitchen, Hope called Iris over with a gesture. "Come closer," she whispered. "There's something I need to tell you." Iris sat on the edge of the bed, taking her mother's hand in hers. "What is it, Mama?" "I want you to know that I'm proud of you, of the woman you became despite everything I did wrong." "Mama, let me finish. I know I wasn't the best mother. I know I took things from you that you deserved. A present father, a childhood without resentment, the truth about your own history. And there's nothing I can do to make up for that. You don't have to. But there's something I can do," Hope continued, ignoring the interruption. "I can give you my blessing. For whatever you build with Lucy. For whatever you rebuild with your father. For whatever you decide to do with your life from now on. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does." Tears fell down Iris's cheeks without her being able to stop them. "Why now? Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm dying, baby. And before I go, I need to know that I didn't leave you broken. That despite everything, you're going to be okay." "I'm going to be okay, Mama. I promise." Hope smiled, and for a moment she looked like the woman Iris remembered from her childhood. Strong, vibrant, full of an energy that was contagious to everyone around her. That's all I needed to hear. That night, Iris and Lucy sat in the backyard of the house, under the magnolia tree that Anthony had planted 34 years ago. The stars shone over the garden district, and the distant sound of a saxophone playing drifted from somewhere in the neighborhood. "How are you feeling?" Lucy asked, intertwining her fingers with Iris's. "I don't know. Relieved, sad, hopeful, all at the same time." "That makes sense. Do you think that she has much time left?" Lucy took a while to respond. "I'm not a doctor, but I've seen sick people before. And your mother, she has a strength I haven't seen in a long time. I think she's going to fight until the end. And after the end, I'll be here, with you, for whatever you need." Iris rested her head on Lucy's shoulder, feeling the warmth of her body against the cool of the night. "Did you know my father told me he always knew I would find him? That even if 100 years passed, he knew I would eventually come looking for him." "Your father is a wise man." He also said he loved me, that he never stopped loving me, even though I believed otherwise. That's also true. How do you know? Lucy pulled away slightly to look her in the eyes, because during the 6 months I was in contact with him, there wasn't a single letter, a single message where he didn't mention your name. You were the first thing he asked about, the last thing on his mind before saying goodbye. For him, you are the center of everything. Iris felt her heart expand in her chest, filling a space she didn't know was empty. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For being there when I didn't know I needed you. For keeping the secrets that needed to be kept. For guiding me without pushing me. For loving me even though I didn't ask you to." "You don't have to thank me for loving you," Lucy replied. "That wasn't a choice. It was inevitable." They kissed under the stars, with the magnolia tree as silent witness to a love that was just beginning to bloom. The following months brought changes Iris would never have anticipated. Hope, against all medical expectations, stabilized. She didn't exactly improve, but she didn't get worse either. It was as if her body had decided it wasn't ready to give up yet, that there were too many things left to see, too many reconciliations to witness. Anthony began visiting every 2 weeks, making the trip from Savannah with the determination of a man who had lost too much time and wasn't willing to lose any more. The first time he crossed the threshold of the house in the Garden District, Hope was sitting in her wheelchair in the living room, waiting for him with a mix of apprehension and something that might have been hope. "Hope," he greeted, removing his hat with a gesture Iris recognized from the old movies her mother used to watch. "Anthony," she replied, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly. The silence that followed was long, charged with 3 decades of unspoken words. Iris and Lucy watched from the hallway, not daring to intervene. It was Anthony who broke it. "You look good," he said, though it clearly wasn't true. "You're a terrible liar," Hope replied. "You were always a terrible liar." "That's true. That's why I preferred to tell the truth and have you throw me out rather than lie and stay." The comment could have been hurtful, but there was something in his tone that made it a simple observation. Hope processed it for a moment, then let out a short laugh. "Sit down," she ordered. "We have a lot to talk about." And they talked. For hours, for days, for the weeks that followed. They talked about what had happened, why it had happened, everything they could have done differently. It wasn't easy. There were tears, there were raised voices, there were moments when Iris feared everything would crumble again. But it didn't crumble. Little by little, something new began to build on the ruins of the past. It wasn't exactly reconciliation, because some wounds never fully heal. It was more like acceptance. A mutual understanding that lost time couldn't be recovered, but remaining time could be used. Anthony rented a small apartment near the house in the Garden District. He said Savannah would always be his home, but he wanted to be close to his daughter while he could. Hope pretended it bothered her to have him so close, but Iris sometimes caught her smiling when he arrived with flowers from the market or with the newspaper he knew she liked to read. Lucy officially moved into the house 3 months after the trip to Savannah. It was a natural decision, almost inevitable. She spent so much time there that keeping her own apartment had become absurd. "Are you sure about this?" Iris asked her the night before the move. "Living with my mother isn't easy, and neither is living with me." "I've been practically living here for months," Lucy replied. "I think I already know what I'm getting into." "But it's different when it's official, when you don't have a place to escape to if things get hard." Lucy took Iris's face in her hands. "I don't want to escape. Not from you, not from your mother, not from this dysfunctional and complicated family that has somehow become mine. Do you understand? If any part of this story resembles your life, the hype button helps make sure it doesn't go unheard." Iris understood. For the first time in her life, she understood what it meant to belong somewhere, to someone. Life in the Garden District house found its own rhythm. Mornings began with the aroma of the chicory coffee Lucy prepared, while Iris helped her mother with her morning routine. Anthony arrived mid-morning with fresh beignets from the bakery on the corner, and the four of them had breakfast together in the courtyard when the weather allowed. Afternoons were for doctor visits, for short walks through Jackson Square when hope felt strong enough, for long conversations about everything and nothing. Nights belonged to Iris and Lucy. They sat in the room they now shared, talking about their plans, their fears, about the future that was beginning to take shape before them. "Did you ever think you would end up like this?" Lucy asked one night, while stroking Iris's hair as she rested with her head in her lap. "Like what?" "Here, in this house, taking care of your mother, reconciled with your father, in love with your neighbor." Iris smiled. "No. 6 months ago, if someone had told me this would happen, I would have laughed in their face. And now? Now I wouldn't change a thing. Well, maybe I would have come sooner. I would have faced the truth before my mother got so sick. But the result is exactly where I need to be." It was true. Despite all the pain, all the lies, all the lost years, Iris had found something she never thought she would have. A complete family. Imperfect, complicated, full of scars, but complete. One Sunday in spring, when the azaleas of the Garden District were in full bloom and the streets were painted in shades of pink and purple, the family gathered in the courtyard for a special meal. Anthony had prepared shrimp creole, his specialty. Lucy had made jambalaya following her grandmother's recipe. Iris had bought a king cake from her mother's favorite bakery. And Hope, seated in her wheelchair with a silk shawl over her shoulders, presided over the table like a benevolent queen who had finally made peace with her kingdom. "I propose a toast," Iris said, raising her glass. "Another toast," Hope complained. "You're getting too sentimental, baby." "Let her be," Anthony intervened. "She has every right to be sentimental. After everything we've been through, we all do." Iris smiled. "To the family we found when we stopped looking for it. To the love that arrived when we least expected it. To the secrets that freed us instead of destroying us. To all of you. To us." "To us," the others repeated, raising their glasses. The wine was cool and sweet, perfect for that spring afternoon. After dinner, while the sun began to set over the rooftops of the Garden District, Iris stepped aside for a moment to observe her family. Her father, seated beside her mother, telling her a story that made her laugh in spite of herself. Lucy, clearing the plates with that quiet efficiency that characterized her, throwing knowing glances every time their eyes met. Her mother, more alive than she had been in years, participating in the conversation with an energy everyone thought she had lost forever. It wasn't perfect, this family of hers. It was made of broken pieces glued together with patience and hope. It had visible cracks, scars that would never fully heal. But it was hers, and that made it perfect in its own way. Lucy came up behind her and wrapped her arms around her. "Everything okay?" "Everything's okay," Iris confirmed. "Everything is exactly as it should be." They stayed like that, embraced, watching the sun sink into the horizon and the first stars appear over New Orleans. The box was still in the closet, closed now, keeping its secrets as memories of a past that no longer had power over the present. The story of Iris and Lucy, of Anthony and Hope, of that unlikely family that had risen from the ashes of lies and pain, continued to be written every day. And though no one knew what the future would hold, there was one certainty that sustained them all. That love, when it's true, always finds a way to bloom, even in the most unexpected places, even after the fiercest storms, even when all seems lost. If you want the continuation of this story, write it in the comments, because that's the only way I'll know what you want. And don't forget that YouTube only prioritizes subscribers. So subscribe now so you don't miss the next story that will make you believe in love and second chances. This is just the beginning. See you soon.